Interesting facts about some of the world's most famous women that will impress your friends. Hello, puzzle lovers. I'm Liliana, and now I'm going to tell you something interesting. Let's get started. Princess Diana. Diana Frances Spencer, though born into a noble family of Earl Spencer, Viscount Althorp, could hardly imagine herself as a princess, and moreover, as a world-famous humanitarian. In 1981, while working as a nursery teacher's assistant, she became engaged to Charles, the eldest son of Elizabeth II. Their wedding took place at St. Paul's Cathedral in July 1981 and made her Princess of Wales, a role in which she was enthusiastically received by the public. The couple had two sons, William and Harry, who were then, respectively, second and third in the line of succession to the British throne. Unlike any other member of the royal family, Diana was invested in the upbringing of her children, picking out their first names and organizing her public duties around their schedule. Diana's marriage to Charles suffered due to their incompatibility and extramarital affairs. They separated in 1992 and their divorce was finalized in 1996. Diana was celebrated in the media for her unconventional approach to charity work. Her patronages were initially centered on children and the elderly, but she later became known for her involvement in two particular campaigns. One involved the social attitudes towards and the acceptance of AIDS patients, and the other for the removal of landmines, promoted through the International Red Cross. Diana was initially noted for her shyness. Her charisma and friendliness endeared her to the public, and helped her reputation survive the public collapse of her marriage. In August 1997, Diana died in a car crash in Paris. The world stopped to mourn the lost princess. At her funeral service, Diana's brother Charles Spencer said, "She proved in the last year that she needed no royal title to continue to generate her particular brand of magic." Agatha Christie. Born in Torquay, England in 1890, Agatha Christie became and remains the best-selling novelist of all time. She is best known for her 66 detective novels and 14 short story collections, as well as the world's longest-running play, The Mousetrap. Her books have sold over 1 billion copies in the English language and 1 billion in translation. It was in 1926 that the strangest moment in Christie's life occurred, her infamous brief disappearance. That year, her husband asked for a divorce and revealed he'd fallen in love with a woman named Nancy Neal. On the evening of December 3rd, Christie and her husband argued, and she disappeared that night. After nearly 2 weeks of public furor and confusion, she was found at the Swan Hydropathic Hotel on December 11th, then left for her sister's home soon after. Christie's autobiography ignores this incident, and to this day, the actual reasons for her disappearance remain unknown. At the time, public largely suspected that it was either a publicity stunt or an attempt to frame her husband, but the real reasons remain forever unknown, and the subject of much speculation and debate. Along with a few other authors, Christie's writing came to define the classic whodunit mystery game, which persists to this day. A large number of her stories have been adapted for film, television, theater, and radio over the years, which has kept her perpetually in popular culture.
Please subscribe.
Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was an American aviator. Earhart was the 16th woman to be issued a pilot's license. She had several notable flights, including becoming the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean in 1928, as well as the first person to fly over both the Atlantic and Pacific. After seeing wounded soldiers returning from World War I, she volunteered as nurse's aide for the Red Cross. Earhart came to know many wounded pilots. In the summer of 1921, Earhart purchased a second-hand Kinner Airster biplane painted bright yellow. She nicknamed it the Canary and set out to make a name for herself in aviation. In 1937, Earhart set out to fly around the world with her navigator and mysteriously disappeared. Across the United States, streets, schools, and airports are named after her. Her birthplace, Atchison, Kansas, became a virtual shrine to her memory. Amelia Earhart awards and scholarships are given out every year. Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday was an American jazz singer, one of the greatest from the 1930s to the 50s. She had no formal musical training, but with an instinctive sense of musical structure and a wealth of experience gathered at the root level of jazz and blues, she developed a singing style that was deeply moving and individual. In 1933, Holiday made her first recordings with the famous jazz band leader, Benny Goodman. She continued to record and tour with the best jazz musicians of the time, including Count Basie and Artie Shaw. Some of the songs most associated with Holiday are Strange Fruit, The Man I Love, and God Bless the Child. Holiday had a successful career into the 1950s. Holiday's autobiography, Lady Sings the Blues, was published in 1956. Holiday suffered from drug addiction, which led to her death on July 17, 1959. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2000 and into the National Women's Hall in 2011.
Coco Chanel. The designer was born on August 19, 1883 in France, and her name was Gabrielle Bonheur Chanel. She spent her childhood in an orphanage where she learned to sew, a skill that would lead to her life's work. At the age of 20, Coco opened her own hat shop, thanks to the financial support she received from a rich man. Later, she opened 2 more stores in which she began to sell clothes. In 1920, Chanel took her already thriving business to new heights with the iconic Chanel No. 5 perfume, created with the intention of redefining the concept of women. As if that wasn't enough, Coco Chanel created the iconic little black dress. With this design, Chanel allowed every woman to walk like millionaires. She's still considered an icon in the fashion industry, and a beloved designer who broke the rules and helped women say goodbye to the days of corsets and other restrictive garments.
Cleopatra. Cleopatra VII ruled ancient Egypt as co-regent for almost 3 decades. She was part of a dynasty of Macedonian rulers founded by Ptolemy, who served as general under Alexander the Great during his conquest of Egypt in 332 BC. Well-educated and clever, Cleopatra could speak various languages and served as the dominant ruler in all 3 of her co-regencies. Her romantic liaisons and military alliances, as well as her supposed exotic and powers of seduction, earned her an enduring place in history and popular myth. Her full name means Cleopatra, the father-loving goddess. Although a co-regent, she commanded power in Egypt throughout her reign and kept it independent in times of political turmoil. Cleopatra supported advancements in science and medicine and also contributed to the Great Library of Alexandria. Centuries after her death, Cleopatra still captivates historians, storytellers, artists, and the public in general. The most starring example being Shakespeare's play Antony and Cleopatra.
Dian Fossey. Dian Fossey was an American zoologist who became the world's leading authority on the mountain gorilla. Fossey was born in San Francisco, California, and developed a fondness for animals when she was a young girl. She received her bachelor's degree in occupational therapy in 1954, and then worked as an occupational therapist in a hospital in Louisville, Kentucky. The friendships she would make at this hospital would propel her to take a different path and become the world-famous conservationist we know today. A respected and pioneering primatologist, Dr. Dian Fossey soon became best known for her gorilla conservation work. Despite facing both economic and political obstacles, she successfully fought to establish the first dedicated ranger patrols. Alongside her research and frontline conservation, she also made it her mission to bring the plight of the great apes to the world's attention.
Eleanor Roosevelt. Anna Eleanor Roosevelt was the longest-serving First Lady throughout her husband, President Franklin D. Roosevelt's 4 terms in office, 1933 to 1945. By the 1920s, Roosevelt, who raised 5 children, was involved in Democratic Party politics and numerous social reform organizations. Upon moving to the White House in 1933, Eleanor Roosevelt informed the nation that they should not expect their new First Lady to be a symbol of elegance, but rather, plain, ordinary Mrs. Roosevelt / Despite this disclaimer, she showed herself to be an extraordinary First Lady. In the White House, she was one of the most active First Ladies in history and worked for political, racial, and social justice. After President Roosevelt's death, Eleanor was a delegate to the United Nations and continued to serve as an advocate for a wide range of human rights issues. She remained active in democratic causes and was a prolific writer until death at age 78.
Estee Lauder. Estee Lauder, the world-famous American businesswoman of Hungarian ancestry, was born in 1908 in New York City. Her parents were Jewish Hungarian immigrants who came to the U.S. in 1898. Lauder started the company in 1946 with her husband and a quartet of face creams. It began to take off in the early 1950s with the introduction of a bath oil that was also a perfume. Her company's expansion was in a large part due to its launching or acquiring new brands to lure different consumers. Lauder pioneered several practices that are now industry standards, including gifts with purchase, beauty contracts, and designer licensing deals. When she died in 2004, Lauder was eulogized as the last great independent titan of her field, one who fundamentally shaped the luxury cosmetics industry. Florence Nightingale. Florence Nightingale was a British nurse, social reformer, and statistician, best known as the founder of modern nursing. Her experiences as a nurse during the Crimean War were foundational in her views about sanitation. She established St. Thomas's Hospital and the Nightingale Training School for Nurses in 1860. Her efforts to reform healthcare greatly influenced the quality of care in the 19th and 20th centuries. Even though it was not a respected profession at the time, Nightingale told her parents that she wanted to become a nurse. When the Crimean War began in 1854, British medical care was in a terrible state. Nightingale and 38 nurses provided individual care and support as well as supplies. Nightingale was known for carrying lamp and checking on the soldiers at night, so they gave her the nickname, the Lady with the Lamp. Maria Callas, American-born Greek soprano. Maria Callas is one of the greatest opera voices of all time. From a complicated family life and beginning, Callas projected herself onto the world's greatest stages, dominating the scene with her unparalleled vocal talent. She filled auditoriums across the globe, tackled some of opera's most challenging roles without so much as a batted eyelid, and rubbed shoulders with the likes of Marilyn Monroe and Queen Elizabeth II. But Maria Callas only enjoyed a short time in her prime before her monumental soprano voice began to falter, and she left the stage behind for a quiet life in Paris before her early death. She expected her audience to listen with as much intelligence and focus as she put out. Callas was a compelling, magnetic, fiery, impassioned presence, and she had her character's immortality. Indira Gandhi. Indira Gandhi was born on the 19th of November 1917 in India. She received education in different places because her parents were constantly moving. She studied various subjects at Oxford and Shantiniketan. From her early life only, Indira Gandhi has been a member of the Indian National Congress. Indira Gandhi saw herself as Joan of Arc. Such was her ardor and faith in herself as a patriot. She is known as the Iron Lady of India for becoming the Prime Minister of India. She also established her worth and became the strongest prime as well as president of the Congress Party. Indira Gandhi led the country to greater heights, nationalized the banks, and worked hard to bring the prosperity of the poor. Jane Austen. Jane Austen was born in 1775 and grew up in the small Hampshire village of Steventon, where her father was a Church of England clergyman. The Austen household was large, with 8 children, 6 boys and 2 girls. When Jane and her sister Cassandra were young, they were given unrestricted access to their father's extensive library. Its books instilled Jane's lifelong love of reading. As a family, the Austens were highly literate and creative, delighting in games, acting, and writing. She published 4 novels during her lifetime: Sense and Sensibility, 1811, Pride and Prejudice, 1813, Mansfield Park, 1814, and Emma, 1815. In these and in Persuasion and Northanger Abbey, published together posthumously, 1817, she vividly depicted English middle-class life during the early 19th century. Her novels defined the era's novel of manners, but they also became timeless classics that remained critical and popular successes for over 2 centuries after her death. Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo was born Magdalena Carmen. Frida Kahlo y Calderon July 6, 1907, and lived in a house, the Casa Azul, or Blue House, now the Museo Frida Kahlo, built by her father. The third of her parents' 4 daughters, Frida was her father's favorite, the most intelligent, he thought, and the most like himself. Kahlo was stricken with polio at the age of 6. After her recovery, her right leg remained thinner than her left, and her right foot was stunted. Her father taught her photography, including how to retouch and color prints, and one of his friends gave her drawing lessons. In 1922, the 15-year-old Kahlo entered the elite, predominantly national preparatory school. Kahlo planned to become a doctor and took courses in biology, zoology, and anatomy. Her knowledge of these disciplines would later add realistic touches to her portraits. Frida Kahlo is remembered for her self-portraits, pain and passion, and bold, vibrant colors. She is celebrated in Mexico for her attention to Mexican and indigenous culture, and by women around the world for her depiction of the female experience and form. Life experience is a common theme in Kahlo's approximately 200 paintings, sketches, and drawings. Her physical and emotional pain are depicted starkly on canvases. Of her 143 paintings, 55 are self-portraits.
Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to part 2. Check out my channel for more puzzle collection.